Okay, so what I've seen on my end of things is the first question that really gave people issues was 13. Okay, so we've got 1 plus 10. Okay, now when I read that next part, I'm going to refer to it as times the quantity 95 minus 2 cubed. Okay, whenever there's a set of parentheses and there are operations occurring inside that set of parentheses, we refer to it as the quantity. Okay, so when doing this, in order of operations, what do I have to do first? I have to do the parentheses. So I got to look inside that group of parentheses, right? So I'm going to focus inside that. So when I go through and I'm focusing my attention on that, I've got to run through the order of operations a second time, starting again at parentheses, but there are no more parentheses inside there, right? Okay? So then I go to what? Exponents, okay? So then I'm going to rewrite this as 1 plus 10 times the quantity. Now it's 95 minus then what? 8, okay? So 2 to the third ends up being 8. Okay? Now I'm going to run through the order of operations again inside those parentheses because I'm not finished with them, right? So I've went from parentheses, I've gone exponents, and now I'm going to go multiply, divide. Is there multiplication, division inside those parentheses? Is there adding and subtracting inside those parentheses? Yes, that's what I'm going to do. So what's 95 minus 8? Yeah, 95 minus 8, 87. Okay, so we get 87. Good. Okay. And guys, when we're doing this, like by hand, like the idea is that I should be writing, this here was equal to this. This then is equal to that. I'm pretty lazy on doing that. A lot of times I don't put the equal sign, but now I'm going to keep going through my order of operations. I've condensed that set of parentheses, right? So parentheses are all done, and now I look at the entire 1 plus 10, and now what does this set of parentheses really mean to me with that 10? Yes, good. So I'm going to multiply, right? So that comes first in the order of operations in regards to either addition or multiplication. So I'm going to go 1 plus, now if it's 87 times 10, it's just 870, right? I just tack on that 0 to the 87. So then I should get 871, right? Okay. Now, you guys, is there anybody on question 13 right now in Math Excel? Is you on 13?
Yeah.
Okay, so what we're seeing here, looking at Mitch's, is that it's the exact same structure, meaning there was a number here, like 1 on his. I think he's got like a 9 there. It was a plus sign. We both had that. His number 10 was different. Okay. Still had a parenthesis. His 95, I think, was like a 97. And then his 2 cubed might have been like 3 squared or something like that. Does that make sense? But the structure is exactly the same. The numbers in those positions might be different, but the structure is the same. Does that make sense, everybody? If at any time you need help with your numbers, again, like I said, let me know, and we can do those. Okay. So the next one would have been 14. Okay. I don't really like Math Excel doesn't let me zoom in and manipulate their web browser very easily. So give me just a real quick second to give myself a little bit of room. So let's get rid of that stuff. Okay. So if I look at that, okay, remember what your division bar does. Your division bar, this thing right here, actually becomes a grouping mechanism, right? Okay? So we do end up with parentheses here. Now we can put parentheses around the 4 on the bottom as well, but there's nothing to do there, right? So I'm going to leave it this way. So it tells me I need to do that work first. Okay, so what's 11 minus 3? 8, right? So she's going to go to, it'll be 14 times 2 cubed, okay, plus 8. Now, you can do this however you want. If you want to go 8 over 4, that's fine. But I think we've seen a lot of times in the examples we've done, it looked like this, 4 times 2 cubed, or 14 times 2 cubed, plus then 8, that division bar now, because it's only between two values, if you want to write it that way, that's fine. Okay, but both those mean the same thing. Now, as I'm going through there, what's the next thing I have to do? Exponents, good. Okay, so 2 cubed is going to turn into 8. Okay. And now as I go through, still working through order of operations, we did exponents. Now we've got to go multiply, divide left to right, whenever we see first. Which one do we see first? Multiplication, division? Multiplication. Okay. Now, 14 times 8. What's 8 times 4? 32, right? So I'll write my 2 down. I'll carry my 3. What's 8 times 1? 8 plus my 3? 11. So I got 112 is 14 times 8, right? And then I've got 8 divided by 4 still here. Okay, I'm going to take that over here, give myself a little bit more room. So I've got 112 plus, what am I going to rewrite this as? 2. And that's going to give me 114, right? I think that part right there was throwing people off with this question. Okay. Something else you can do, and I know somebody in the class after you guys has been doing this, which is fine. Just be extremely careful when you do this. They understand the order of operations enough that says, I know I can do that and make that 112, and I know I can do that and make that 2 right away, kind of in the same step. Does that make sense? If you are comfortable doing that, by all means, go ahead and do it. But if you're doing that and then you're consistently getting the questions wrong, then that might be the culprit for why your questions are wrong. So make sure you kind of think about that procedure. Questions on this stuff? Is this okay? Feel comfortable with that? Let's go 20. Again, guys, at any time, stop me if I'm going too fast, something that makes sense. All right, so if we're looking here, and we want to go order of operations. Now, there are parentheses, but is there anything I can do inside those parentheses? No. Okay. So I go to exponents. Okay, and there's 2 positions for exponents, right? When you have multiple exponents, you can kind of knock them all out at once. Okay. So I've got 5, and then I've got this negative 5 squared. What's negative 5 squared going to give me? 25, right? Negative times a negative is a positive, so we get 25. Minus 98, divided then by 49. Okay? So now, as I work through order of operations, what do I need to do next? I need to do this multiplication right here. So what's that going to give me? 125. Then minus 98, divided by 49. Order of operations, what do I do next? Yep. So we get to division, so we got to do that. What's that going to give me? Should be 2. Okay, so 98 divided by 49 is 2. And then I can do my subtraction, and we end up with 123. Questions? Okay, so 21. 21 is the same style question. So in Math Excel, like in an assignment, I might only have like 12 questions to choose from, okay? So I might choose one of those questions 3 or 4 times just to get practice at it. So 21 is the same thing. So if you struggle with 20, you probably struggle with 21. Hopefully now going over 20, I'm going to skip over 21. I'm not going to go over that one with you. Does that make sense? Save a little bit of time for us. If we need to, at any time, see multiple of one style question, let me know. Now, this one was the one that was missed the most. Okay? And it looks like a jumbled mess, right? So we're going to work through this systematically, thinking about our order of operations. If I look at so if we look at the innermost set of parentheses. So here's a set of parentheses, which there's nothing really to do inside those, right? So I need to pay attention to those. But now I've got like these parentheses here, right? But then I've got another set inside those right here, correct? So I need to focus on that set of parentheses first. Okay? So I need to look at the negative, not negative, 3 minus 4 first. All right, so we're going to focus on that right there. Everything else I'm going to write down the same. So 24 divided by negative 2 squared plus 4 bracket 2 minus 3. Now what's that going to turn into? Negative 1. And I raise it to the 5th power, right? Okay. Now I still have parentheses. And there's still operations inside these parentheses here, right? Yeah. Okay, what we just did was we got rid of that parenthesis and that one. But now we can move to the brackets. So working inside here, order of operations tells me to deal with what first? The exponent. Okay? So what that means is I got negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 1, right? That's just negative 1, right? Okay, so you got 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. And an odd number of negatives gives me a negative result when I multiply. So we got 24 divided by negative 2 squared plus 4, 2 minus 3. Now this is going to be a negative 1, and what is the operation happening there? Between the 3 and, okay, so the 3 and the negative 1 is multiplication. Now I said 3, and I kind of misspoke. Because when I talk about something, let's say we had 3 Mitches in here, and I said, everybody look at Mitch. Are people going to be looking at different people? Or is it, if I just said if we had 3 people named Mitch, and do we have anybody with double names in here? Share a name? Okay. So let's say that we have 3 people here named Mitch. Okay? And I say, everybody look at Mitch. Or maybe a third of them going to look at this Mitch, and a third going to look at a different Mitch, and a third look at a different Mitch. Does that make sense? Not everybody is going to look at the one that I'm talking about, the Mitch bar that I'm talking about, right? Okay? It's the same idea with numbers. Okay? If I want everybody to look at Mitch Barr, I'm going to say, hey, everybody look at Mitch Barr. I'm going to use his first name and his last name, right? When we're talking about numbers, there's a first name and last name to them all the time. The first name is the plus or the minus. The last name is the actual value. Okay? If we don't say a first name, if I just say 3, it's an assumed first name of positive 3, right? If I say negative, then negative 3, negative would be the first name, 3 would be the last name. That's important because a lot of people are going to want to see this and they're going to take 3 times negative 1 and get negative 3. Does that make sense? But what is that really going to be doing? I'm taking negative 3 times negative 1 and that turns into what? Positive 3. Okay? All right. I have college algebra students, guys, people that are seniors, okay, that still run into that issue. They still do that kind of thing. We need to make sure that we are all on the same page with being able to make sure that we, whenever we're using an operation, we take the sign that is in front of those values and use that sign. Okay, still got parentheses, right? Yeah. So I'm going to 24 divided by the negative 2 cubed plus 4. Now, that 2 plus 3 can turn into of 5. We good? Oh, good call. I do that kind of thing from time to time. So if I ever, like it's 2, 2, 2, 2, and then I went to cube. You see those things, let me know. I make mistakes, and I'm not, ask my wife, I make mistakes every day. So let me know when I'm wrong. Does that make sense? So we don't go through the whole problem and get it wrong, but everybody's like, well, I saw that in the first step that he made a mistake. Okay? Let me know so we can make a correction and then save a lot of time. So that's 24 divided by, what's that going to turn into? 4. And then I got 4 times 5. What's 24 divided by 4? 6. Can I do that at the same time? Make that 20. And you could have done that in the previous step if you wanted to. It's not going to affect things. So then 26 ends up being that final result. Okay? The more operations we get, obviously, the more cluttered the problems become, the more cluttered the procedures become. But that's actually in regards to, so what we're trying to do here, we talked about it yesterday, we're trying to build skills so that later on we can use these skills inside of another process, right? It would be rare for us in another process to see, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 operations that are occurring, at least 9. It'd be kind of rare to see that. Does that make sense? But if you can do that, then when we see 3 or 4 in another process, that's just going to be instinct, and you're going to be able to ace it because of how simple it seems then. Questions on this? Does anybody have anything they want to go over, anything specific that they struggled on that we want to talk about? I want to do a little bit more practice, so won't you get some paper and pencil out, whatever you're doing your notes in. So I don't have a handout for today's stuff. No, you don't need your computers out anymore. All right, so write that one down, okay? I'll do the first couple steps with you just to get the practice of substituting, but then I'll have you simplify it. Yeah, but next time, let's wait until we're done with stuff, okay? All right. All right, so with this question, it says evaluate each using the values given, meaning that we have to substitute, right? Yeah. So everywhere up there, I'm going to take that entire expression, and wherever I see an X, I'm going to replace it with 2. Where I see a Y, I'm going to replace it with 3. And where I see a Z, I'm going to replace it with 2, right? Okay? That is one of the most prevalent procedures through all of math, okay, is having some variable, some what we call arbitrary value, not knowing what it is, don't know what x is, don't know what z is, don't know what y is, but then they tell me, or I figure it out somehow, and then I can plug it in, okay? So we do that. So now as we go through that, what's the first thing I need to do in regards to my order of operations? The parentheses. So that's the only set I can do anything in, right? So it's going to leave me with 2 times negative 3. Okay. So we get that. Now what do I need to do? Okay, so do this multiplication here. So it gives me negative 6. Now, here's where, I think we can save ourselves some steps, guys. That's the only thing that I did. I did the negative 6. Now, I traditionally would write then plus 3 times 2 plus 2 plus 2 minus 3, right? Rewrite everything that I did not touch, okay? But if I do that, kind of think ahead, if I were to do that, the next step would be to go through and do the remaining multiplication, wouldn't it? So let's just go ahead and do that in one step. I can change this here as well at the same time to plus 6, and then plus 2, minus 3. And I think, guys, when you break it down to where all you have is addition and subtraction left over, you should just be able to go left to right, keeping tally, keeping total of what you have. So negative 6, then I add 6 to it, so I'm at what now? 0, then I add 2 to it, and then I add 2 more to it, and then I subtract 3 from it. What should I be at? I should be at 1. Okay? So someone can do? All right, let's go. Let's do that one. Again, a lot of these questions, you're going to have 3 things you substitute, maybe 4 things. And for the most part, when we're working on new ideas throughout the rest of algebra, there's usually going to be only 2 things that we substitute in. So if we can do it with 3, we can do it with 4, we can do it with 5, and we can do it with more than what we needed in that new stuff, which will be kind of an added bonus for us. When we substitute, guys, so here's what happens when we have an input value like Q being negative. You're going to see from time to time, depending on whoever is writing the problem for you or showing you the work, when they substitute a negative sometimes, so like right here when I wrote, so it's plus, so there, that plus right there is that one there, but then this was a negative, right? So sometimes they will put that negative 5 in parentheses just to remind you that it's supposed to be negative, right? That you haven't made a mistake when you write plus minus or plus a negative 5 right next to a plus sign. So just be careful with that if you see that notation. So there's nothing wrong with maybe doing that as well. Okay. I also think, though, that this is okay to see, because if I see plus or minus, what does plus minus really mean? If they're back-to-back like that. Adding the opposite is what I'm saying, right? And adding the opposite is the definition of what? Because remember, adding the opposite being the definition of subtraction. Okay, that's all. So subtraction, all it is adding the opposite. So if we think about things, all of our math just kind of works all its way all the way back to just addition. Okay, all four of our operations go back to addition to some degree. So this turns into subtraction. This turns into what? Addition. Okay. So if you want to, it's not 100% necessary, but I think it's probably a good idea to maybe rewrite this maybe that way, where I see those double signs of a plus and minus, or a minus and minus, or minus and negative, that we go ahead and adjust those and change them to what they really mean to us or for us. Okay. You have two sets of parentheses, right? So you need to go through PEMDAS in here, and you need to go through it in there. Okay, I think it's maybe one of the first times we've actually seen two separate sets of parentheses where they were not inside one another, right? Okay, so I'm going to leave this 2 out in front alone, and this is going to turn in, what's this going to turn into? Okay, good. So you did the 5 times 3 first, you got 15, right? And then added 2 to that and got your 17. That's fine. So you did 2 steps there at once. I'm okay with that. The second grouping here, you can kind of do, it's all addition, subtraction, right? So you can go left to right. You've got 3 minus 5 plus 5 minus 3. What are those 5s going to do each other? Cancel each other out, right? Okay, we call those additive inverses. So they go to 0. So then you'd be left with 3 minus 3, right? What do those do? Cancel each other out, right? So what are we left with here? That gives me 0 there, doesn't it? Okay. So here's the thing that people make the mistake with, is that when something goes to 0, they just think it disappears. Okay, does that make sense? Like if I have 12 sheep and they all die, my sheep have disappeared, right? Or let's say they don't die. Let's say they run away. They've disappeared, right? I no longer have any sheep. Okay. So the idea is that they've vanished. They've disappeared. But I should still be using the value of 0. Does that make sense? 0 is a number. So when everything dwindles down to 0, you still need that to take the place of 3 minus 5 plus 5 minus 3. Okay? It just doesn't vanish, because I'm afraid that people are going to say, well, this goes to 0, so then that's not there. It vanished. I have 2 minus 17. Okay? Where in reality, that does become 0, and now order of operations says to do that first, right? So I have 2 minus 0, and now I have 2, right? So my correct answer is 2, but if I thought that 0 meant that it just vanishes, my answer would have been negative 15, and that's incorrect. Okay? Is everybody kind of okay with that? Okay, let me, so I want to give you a little bit of time to work on some stuff here. It's only about 8 minutes, but I think that's good to at least give you some time to start.